at the full lunar eclipse. This is November 8th, 2022. I want to talk about two versions of the birth of Jesus Christ. And this one is not pertaining to coaching, considering that I'm at such a unique time filming. And this was a topic that I wanted to bring up, but I wanted to bring it up for Christmas, but I said, you know what, I want to do it now. I can't wait until Christmas. And this is based on two different perspectives. The first one is a Tantric perspective, and the second one is a Sci-Fi perspective. The value here is not necessarily for coaching per se. It's more like for imagination, and it's more to give you some perspective into what you want to do with your intimate life, okay? And how you evaluate, how you judge your intimate moments, okay? The power of them. So the first perspective. As I kept reading, when I was documenting on sexuality, and I was still doing my certification, so this was back in 2016 when I started, and I found this perspective for the first time there. The story was, in the yoga and tantric communities, there is this perspective that Jesus Christ was born out of a tantric intimate act, sex act, okay, tantric sex. And that, in fact, Joseph and Virgin Mary were even more powerful than, as a couple, than Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. Because it was this couple that gave birth to Jesus Christ, which was a highly advanced soul. So how does that happen? First of all, both of them, as the perspective went, as I started reading and documenting, both souls had grown and evolved in various or numerous lifetimes to reach that level of consciousness. You can take two ordinary people and teach them the methods, as is done right now in a lot of NeoTantric workshops. You can teach them the methods, the positions, how to breathe, and so on, but they're not going to give birth to somebody like Jesus Christ. There's more to it than just the technique. Okay, there's the soul, the level of development of each soul, and the compatibility between two souls and their union. All of it matters, not just the technique. Now, this isn't to discredit workshops and the tantric perspective or the sacred sexuality perspective. Absolutely not. This is simply to say that there's more to bringing about an advanced being, soul, into this life than mere technique. You gotta be with your entire being at a certain stage, level of understanding. And it's not, according to the tantric perspective, it is not something that you build in just one life. At least not these two souls. And as I was reading, the two channels, Joseph and Virgin Mary, had to be pure, had to be clean, had to be highly advanced. So when they came together in a highly conscious act, a tantric act, a sacred, I don't even think they had Tantra in their mind. I don't think they adhered to the Hindu tradition. But that's my personal belief based on nothing else but pure personal conjecture. So in order to come into a conscious, sacred, intimate moment and consciously bring into the world a highly advanced being, highly advanced soul. Okay, all these gifted peoples that we see out there, yeah, some of them, if we look out in the world, they come in seemingly ordinary families with people that are not necessarily the highest in consciousness. Those are paradoxes. But when you get somebody like Buddha, like Jesus Christ, I believe there are a bit more high beings that came, like Sai Baba and the other masters and prophets in the Hindu tradition, in the Arab world, Muhammad and so on, the families, the people themselves, even if they had nothing materially speaking, their souls must have been highly advanced. Their channels must have been clean. I'm not talking body clean or physically clean. I'm talking soul clean, okay? Inner purity. And in fact, one of the explanations that the Tantric perspective gives to the name of Virgin Mary, it's not that she was a virgin. It's not that she didn't have sex. Because in all actuality, there's no other way a soul can enter into this world. So nature knows no other laws but through an intimate or sexual act. So it's not that she was literally virgin. It's that she was so clean on the inside that the entire vibe of her entire demeanor, attitude, her way of being seemed like that of a virgin. So pure, so clean. That's the explanation for her purity, okay? The cleanliness of her soul, that people understood it, the purity of this woman, they understood it also in physical terms. Probably because very few people could understand or could decode the word virgin, pure, untouched, in other ways but physical. Yes, there's also the perspective that Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene were also a highly powerful tantric couple. Then again, nothing is known of their offspring. And a lot of people disbelieve in the fact that Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ, once Jesus was resurrected, and the explanation is that he never truly died. So his body didn't physically die. And everything that had happened to him when he was crucified, none of the wounding, although it was cruel, it was extremely painful also, it was not strong enough to kill the man. He seemed like he died, but fainted, maybe clinical death, what we now know as that. But the grounded explanation was, for some people, that the resurrection, as we all know it, was in fact him never dying actually, but just recovering afterwards. It is an explanation, okay? All I can do is right now come with conjecture, and this is the meaning of this is not to bring historical facts, scientific fact, and all of that. No, it's just to present a perspective on what kind of people, what kind of an act, the purity of it, and if you're conscious enough, you bring about highly conscious, powerful, impactful souls into our life. It is. Think about it. Through sex, it's the only moment when we are genuinely God's, because we bring into the world a new life. Who does that? God, right? Okay, the divine spark that happens when we all give birth, it is godlike. So that's my message here. No matter what we do, no matter how many people we have tantric or NeoTantric sex with, the level of development, the spark in our soul, that one is built in lifetimes. If there was such a thing as multiple lives or reincarnation, would be to take it in multiple lives, because the material world also draws your energy to it. You have to survive in order for your soul to grow. And I'll give you the Taoist perspective here. When we do all the energetic practices through the Taoist tradition, that's what I resonate with. At the end of them, so we're talking sexual practices, but with non-aroused sexual energy. Okay, it's not with arousal and you touch yourself in your genitalia and you get an orgasm. No, practices, energetic practices for your non-aroused sexual energy. At the end of them, you accumulate. Okay, you accumulate the energy that you've activated. You accumulate it in the dantian. Okay, the lower belly. That's where women have the uterus, but all people in the lower belly, we develop, according to the Taoist tradition, the energetic embryo of our being. And granted, we have enough time in this lifetime, and we stick to the practices, that energetic embryo grows into a fetus, an infant, a child, a teenager, young adult, and so on. So our energetic being grows. But in order for that to happen, you gotta have time, therefore health in the body, and also give yourself time to cultivate your practices. So in order to grow, you also have to give some time to your material condition. Okay, you gotta make a living. Unless you are fortunate enough to be born in a very well-off family where you don't need to do the daily chores to survive, then you can actually do the energetic practices and develop your being, your consciousness. And there's loads of ways in which we can do that. There are some hindrances in today's world where technology, and we're going to get to sci-fi immediately, steals a lot of our attention, a lot of our time. A lot of our vital energy basically goes into technology. And provided we use technology for our growth, okay, we are gonna grow. But if we don't, our time is wasted and our vital energy is also wasted because we're investing our energy somewhere. Instead of cultivating our energetic being to grow, reach higher potential, bring into this world higher and more advanced souls, yeah, you gotta, and I'm talking spiritually advanced. So unless you do that, there's no way we can progress in quality also. If you look around the planet, and this is again my personal perspective here and my personal conjecture, I have no science to prove it, just my observations. So it could be highly flawed, but in my personal, limited to one person understanding, the planet, humanity, basically on the planet, grew in quantity, in numbers, not so much in quality. My personal observation. You can quote me on this one, you can judge me on it, you can contradict me on it, sure. I mean, I don't have, again, scientific hard data studies or anything. I just have my personal observation, spirit of observation. So now let's move on to the second story that I had that was sci-fi. And this is, again, science fiction, okay? Not based in fact, not based in studies. It's just a hypothesis that I got it directly from the X-Files. I used to be a huge fan back in the day. The perspective that is presented at the end of season 7 and beginning of season 8, Scully, who had been abducted by aliens and was left barren, officially, she tries to artificially inseminate herself. I'm not sure with what, but the movie doesn't get into that detail. And she asks Mulder to be the genetic father of her offspring. As Mulder's being kidnapped, or abducted by aliens actually, she finds herself pregnant. Once Mulder is returned to the planet Earth after the experiments and after he comes back to life and is safe and all of that, Scully's pregnancy evolves and she arrives at the point where she's about to give birth. And this is where it gets really interesting. She understands, or she learns, that she is wanted to have her baby taken. She cannot give birth to that baby. There's a lot of information that her baby is the one that will save humanity from being invaded by aliens. And she learns later on that her baby is one of the super soldiers. Genetically enhanced to be a human, but a human that can't die, that can't be injured, that can't have sickness and all of that. So she runs off to a place in the wild to give birth to her baby. Apparently, where she lies, or where she stays to give birth to the baby, there is this bright light in the sky that shines there. And the woman that is helping her is afraid that that light is too bright for a star. It's actually a UFO. There are three characters in this show. Agent Scully calls them the Three Stooges. They're really brainy and just, these science geeks, nerds. And they come to her. They find out where she is, so they come to her to aid her. The place where she is, she's being attacked by one of the super soldiers that wants her baby not to be born. So another kind of like a mutant, UFO mutant, alien mutant. And apparently, out of the blue, there's a lot of cars with a lot of people that show up. And as she's giving birth into that place in the wild with the bright light in the sky, the alien light, the people are watching her giving birth. And she keeps crying, "You can't take my baby, you can't take my baby." All of a sudden, we also see Agent Mulder, the genetic father of the baby, that comes in the place. He was never told where the place was. The place was never disclosed to him because he was also being attacked. As he had been abducted and there had been some experiments done on him in the past, his DNA is transformed also. This happens throughout the show, so he's no longer just a human. He's a genetically modified human. One of the first association, I have the wrong word now, association between human DNA and alien DNA. And this is done as he's an adult in experiments. That's why the baby, the offspring that comes from his sperm, is advanced and different. So he shows up there, surprised to find out all those people that are jumping into their cars and running away all of a sudden. And he sees, as he's about to enter, he sees the Three Stooges. Langley, Froeike, and I forgot the other guy's name. Really forgot, I'm sorry. And they're coming out, each of them has gifts, the three magi's with gifts. They came to welcome the newborn. And when they ask him, but how did you know how to come here? He said, "I followed the bright light in the sky." So that was as I was watching, I was like, oh my God, they did that. No way they didn't do it. Yes, they did. They took the biblical story and they took a sci-fi spin to it. And if you can believe it, Mulder and Scully never had sex. It was an artificial, in vitro fertilization. So it was fertilized somewhere else and then inseminated into a woman. That's it. That could be, if you were to really go the wild, take the wild approach, it could be how Jesus Christ came into being. Virgin Mary never had sex, as the story goes. So if she didn't have tantric sex, then she was artificially inseminated by other advanced technologies, obviously not accessible to mankind in 33 before Christ. It's a sci-fi perspective, Like I'm saying again, the power, because if this scenario were to be true, we don't have evidence, but if this scenario were to be true, then the gods before our gods were aliens, and they genetically altered the genes of mankind with their genes to bring about a new species. So the point here is, no matter which way you take it, tantric sex or in vitro fertilization, the power, we're playing gods, or we are gods, whatever the case. The act of creation is the godlike moment and energy. That's where it is. We're bringing new life. So if you look at what happens nowadays, genetically modified organisms, GMOs, we do that with crops. If you listen to Robert Sapolsky's, he has an entire YouTube playlist, and it begins in a really funny way. He asks his students if they believe in free will, and as students raise their hands, those that do, he laughs in a very ironic or /cynical way. Yeah, that's going to change by the end of this class. And there's an episode where he talks about extreme natural calamities in which animals can run, birds can fly, insects can get out of there in whatever way. Plants cannot, because they are rooted. And the only defense that plants have in case of a nuclear accident, in case of any kind of natural calamity that would affect or alter the conditions, air, radiation, electromagnetism, and so on, the only defense that plants have is to jump their genes, okay, jumping genes. It's like when you're playing the slot machine where you pull the levy or the lever and just stuff changes there on the screen, so swap, I think, genes, in hopes that the alteration of those genes, so new combinations, one of them will help the plant survive the new altered conditions. Okay, so plants do that with themselves also as a defense mechanism. I'm no scientist, so I'm just going to stop here. This is a very rudimentary and primitive and just limited way of presenting this. But coming back to sexuality and the perspectives on Jesus Christ and deeper down what the sacred act of creating new life and how we alter it or how we change it. One with the pure way where we actually work on ourselves and on the cleanliness of our souls. And the other one where we play with genetics, basically. The consciousness behind it is the key, because you can do technique or you can implant fertilized eggs into people, but it doesn't mean that the result is gonna be the one that you desire. And consciousness, okay, the level of understanding, the intention with which somebody alters genes or inseminates in vitro an egg and then implants it into a woman, the intention guides the information, the quality of insemination or modifications. As in the case of Tantra, the intention and the level of understanding, the spark of light, is the one that will determine the level at which you engage intimately and the purity of the act, the purity of the family, the souls, and the purity at which the new soul that is born will raise itself to. So this is a really intense speech for a total lunar eclipse. If you're listening this on Christmas, because maybe the algorithm will push it for Christmas, then happy Christmas also, or at any other time. And remember that personal growth, the spark in your soul, okay, the divine spark in all of us, the vital one, that's the one where you start from. Okay, all other things, technique, science, including science fiction, all of that is affected by the intention behind it. So that being said, check out other videos that I have here, and if you resonate, start working with me on somatic practices where we slowly, gradually start to cultivate our consciousness, a better relationship to our bodies, a better way to embody ourselves. That's it. See you later. Bye.